here today with you, hosting a wonderful man, the mayor of St. Joseph, Missouri, Bill McMurry. I'm Dr. Lydia Istomina, and I am the pastor at Francis Street First United Methodist Church. Bill, remember I told you that we started this program, this podcast, Co-op Life Talk, a year ago, out of Francis Street First United Methodist Church. And this program is sponsored by the Missouri Conference for the United Methodist Church because our audience started growing, and we started this Co-op Life Talk for the mature audience, especially in people like St. Joseph, people who watch us on Facebook, and at this time, people with looking stability, looking some centeredness. And so we invited different guests, and they shared about their life stories, about their leadership skills, and also showed the example how to cope in the time of uncertainty. So we welcome you. We will have two co-hosts today, and Candy Sheehan and Scott Kiddle will join us later. But now, Bill, welcome at our podcast number 51, and we are here in St. Joseph, Missouri. And there are a lot of things happened in 2020, and now we are in April 2021. I ask you to start with introducing yourself. Let our audience know you. Welcome.
Well, I can be happy to introduce myself. I'm Bill McMurray. I just completed 3 years of my 4-year term as mayor of St. Joseph, and it's been an interesting 3 years. I'm looking forward to the next year. When I ran for office, I told everyone I was going to do this for 4 years, and so I will not be seeking re-election, but I will absolutely work just as hard in this last round around the track as I have for the first 3 years. I've done my best to be a full-time mayor, and we've had lots of challenges, as Lydia alluded to. We've had not one, not two, but 3 floods, and one of which was not recognized by FEMA and SEMA, so that made it even more difficult for the people involved and for all of us. We've had the 3 floods. We've had the pandemic, which I think we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel on that. I sure hope. I hope the variants don't reach St. Joseph and wreak havoc. So we'll keep our fingers crossed, keep our prayers going on that one. And we had a city manager resign. We had an interim city manager. We had a city manager hired who left after 9 weeks. And just this week, we've announced that we have hired a city manager. Our city attorney, who had been serving as interim city manager, Brian Carter, is going to fill the role of city manager, assuming the council approves his contract here in May, which I have every reason to believe they will, since he was their unanimous choice out of a field of 17 semifinalists and 50 finalists. So, when people ask me how it's been, I typically say, well, there were 3 floods and 1 pandemic, and I've lost count of the number of city managers. So that's a thumbnail sketch of the last 3 years.
This is wonderful. Thank you, Bill, for introducing yourself. And here I want to introduce to you our 2 co-hosts, Candy Sheehan, and she's also from Francis Street First. She's our lay leader and very inspirational when we created this podcast. And Scott Kiddle, my husband. He's also the pastor at the Union Star, and he and I actually started this podcast out of our home in April 2020, and Candy helped us from a distance, and then now we have this wonderful professional podcast. So welcome again, and we'll have lots of questions to you today. And as I said when we chatted a little, that several people wrote to me about your qualities as a leader. I want to ask you, how did it start? How did you start working for the city? Because for several years, I believe for 10 years, you were a public administrator, correct?
That's right.
Yes, and quite a few people commented to me on how excellent you were in
Oh,
that role.
thank you.
I was told that you were always in your office, always helping people, always reaching out. So, could you tell us a little about that time?
Well, when I entered the public administrator's office, it was 2007, and it was, I guess, the easiest way to say it is pretty messy. The previous occupant was under investigation by the federal court and by the FBI, and later served time in federal prison for her conduct of the office. And so when I got there, there weren't too many records because the FBI had taken most of the records. There was a computer program, but there was no data on the computer. There were belongings stored various places around town, including the conference room in the office. And then we were in the Hilliard building at that time. So upstairs on the second floor, there was a storage area that just had everything kind of thrown in there. Kind of looked like a college dorm room on a bad day. It was pretty messy. So I had a great staff that helped me do this, and a great deputy and a great couple of people on the staff. And eventually we had 4 people on the staff. We got the entire office computerized. We certainly got the finances. We had no finances at all. We had to start with the probate court and kind of reconstruct the data on the finances. And after about a year, we had all the finances in the computer. We can print statements for people who request their bank balances. We had all of the inventory computerized, and I guess you'd say in a nutshell, we cleaned up the office both literally and figuratively. And when I left about 4 years ago, we were up to about 440 cases, and had a great staff, and I think people's lives were helped. And more than one person said to me, I owe my life to you, which made it very much worthwhile having served in that role. And I think it's probably, as Governor Parsons said one of the times he was here in St. Joe, the public administrator's job is the most difficult job in the courthouse. And I agree with him on that. It was a very difficult job, but it was also a very rewarding job.
This is incredible. Okay, Candy, go ahead.
Well, Candy, you got to unmute here.
Sorry, I came in late to the party, and so I feel like I missed your introduction, and I hope I don't ask too many questions that you already answered. But what I would like to ask about, I really do want to understand the public administrator's role just a little bit better. I know the amazing job you did as far as cleaning things up and getting things in a very good working order. But the thing that I wasn't really certain of, that's a huge caseload you had, over 400. That's just mind-boggling. What do you do for those people? Do you pay their bills? I really don't know what a public administrator does. I know you help people, but that's a pretty broad. I'd just like to know a little bit more specifically what you did in that role, please.
Well, it kind of, I guess in simple terms, it would be you do everything for the person that the court has decided they can't do for themselves. So that's, find the least restrictive placement for them. Yes, take care of their bills. Typically they get Social Security. Most of that goes to where they live. They get an allowance out of that each month. And so you help them budget that. And once a year, they get a little property tax credit back from the state of Missouri. And a lot of that goes toward funding pre-arrangements so that when the time comes that, they need a funeral, there'll be something there that can help. The last indignity would be no money for a funeral and just having to cremate them and put them in the potter's field, as it were. So really, it's as a guardian, your job is to make the decisions for the people who are not able to make decisions for themselves. As a conservator, which I was appointed by the judge in numerous cases as conservator, it's to manage their assets.
Mhm.
For those who really didn't have any assets other than a Social Security check each month, the judge gave me permission to be their representative payee for Social Security.
Mhm.
So I did that. Then also there were some cases that were deceased estates that for one reason or another, the families, or there were no families, couldn't take care of it. So the public administrator winds up closing someone's estate. Most of the people, were indigent. So there weren't a whole lot of estates, but there were some estates. And
Mhm.
it's the family is really, unless there's a toxic relationship, the family is the first choice. The public administrator really is the last choice. If nobody else will take care of people, then it's up to the public administrator to do those things as guardian, conservator, representative payee, or personal representative of an estate.
I really appreciate what I just heard, Bill, and thank you, Candy, for this question.
That was very helpful. I do have a much better understanding. Thank you.
Right, yeah, because I think that helped me understand your qualities as a leader. Because you know how frustrating and how hard and confusing it is for people to take care of a person who is either incompetent or cannot take care of himself or herself. But you took care of 400 people. That's
Well,
incredible. How did you do that? And what kind of quality and mechanism did you need in place? And seems like you created the mechanism to do that, since you started when it was a chaos.
well, it was chaos for sure. There were a total of 5 of us in the office, and so we split up the caseloads, and we had someone do the finance. We had separation of duties, of course, as required by accounting. But someone wrote the checks. Somebody else balanced the accounts. We had several people who were deputies who took care of people, and the judge allowed us to do a lot of this by what we're doing now during COVID. A lot of this telemedicine, you do it on the computer, like we're doing on the computer. The judge allowed us to do visits on the computer. When I first started, I had people all over the state of Missouri. I drove out to St. Louis and Columbia and all kinds of little towns around that had specialty nursing homes to take care of people, and of course Kansas City and St. Joseph. So I mean, these people were scattered all over the place, and so it just telemedicine helped a lot, if we could call it that. To visit everyone. So I had a great staff. We got organized. Very little paper in the office. Everything was, by the time I left, everything except a few little items like Social Security cards and so forth that were locked up. But just all the paper records were digitized. So we could get on the computer and take a look at the entire file. There were anecdotal notes from phone calls and visits with professionals and so forth. And it was really a great improvement, I think. Kind of brought the office into the computer age, I'd say. That's how we did it.
That's a great achievement. Exactly, yeah. So you know how to use technology. And Scott, who is an IT specialist, he has a question right away, I think.
Well, you tell the story of how you digitized the office. When I first came to this church here in Union Star, which is, as you know, just a little town of 400, I learned that their finances were all on paper.
Yeah.
And had been since time immemorial. And one of the first things that I did was say, let's get this digitized. Mm-hmm. But that was just for one small organization, right? Not for profit, but you did it for the entire city. That's impressive.
Thank you.
What background did you bring to that public administrator job? You obviously have some skills.
Well, I was in the property casualty insurance business for about 25 years, and the last 10 years I was active in the agency. I was the chief financial officer. So those my degrees originally, when I went to college, somebody said, "Now, I know you're interested in music. Maybe you ought to minor in business." I said, "Oh, I'll never be in business." So I got my bachelor's and master's degrees in music education, and then I wound up in the insurance business for 25 years. So I took national exams in risk management and insurance. I think, there are probably about a total of 13 of those for the charter property casualty underwriter and associate in risk management. Part of that are college level courses in accounting and economics and lots of those areas. So although my academic training was in music and education, my business training was through the Insurance Institute and through the college, American College. And then I was also a certified insurance counselor. So that's another 4 or 5 national exams. So I took a whole bunch of national exams and got smart and somewhat. And when I went to the public administrator's office, I thought, well, I know how to run an office and I understand finance and, this will be easy. Well, it wasn't easy, but I just have to say again and again, I had a great staff and we all worked together. We all got along well. And, I think we helped a lot of people, made their lives better.
I have a question. First of all, we have a comment here from Deborah Butterfield. I'm so glad you shared about your 10 years of experience as a public administrator, because not probably everybody knows what the public administrator does. And so Deborah Butterfield commented, I had no idea that's what the public administrator did. That's impressive. That's really a much needed job. And there are so many people who are misplaced here, who don't have resources or who are mentally not capable or don't have money. So it's just really a much needed service for the city. Since you described to us how messy was the beginning of that role, I think you're a perfect candidate to share with us this time on our Coping Life Talk podcast. You have lots of coping skills. And no wonder you became the mayor, because the city constantly deals with emergencies, with crises, and unpredicted situations. And especially the last year, 2020 was a year of uncertainty, and 2021 I think is uncertain too. So could you share with us, how did you start as a mayor? And I hope it was not a messy year as it was for the public administrator. And then also, where did it lead you as a man of integrity, as I read here from people's comments, and honesty? They say that you have a complete dedication to our city, and you're very kind. So please tell us how all these qualities help you to lead St. Joseph, Missouri.
Well, I should first note that when I walked into the mayor's office in 2000 and gosh, what year was it? 18, April of 2018. It was in far better shape than the public administrator's office was in 2007. So. The city really, there are so many great people in the city government, and I was helped a great deal when I started because I'd never been a mayor before, and my initial thought was I would run for council and see how that went, and maybe after 4 years on the council, throw my hat in the ring for mayor. And then Mayor Bill Faulkner, mayor at the time, called and told me that he decided he was going to run for state representative. And so several people encouraged me to run for mayor. They said, you've done a good job as public administrator. Go ahead and run for mayor. And the political rhetoric, they always say, see if you can clean up the city. Well, every organization can do better. And continuous improvement, remember TQM, which we all took, the continuous improvement loop that it has. So, that rhetoric is there, but the city really is doing well, and I'm especially happy with Brian Carter as the choice for the city manager. That may go down as the best decision the council made, was hiring Brian to be our new city manager. But leadership, I think it probably all started. I've always said there were 3 major influences in my life besides my family, of course. Number 1 was the cathedral, which is where I went to grade school, and the whole idea of religion being a part of life, and the 10 Commandments, the the commandments of the church, the liturgy of the church, certainly. All of those things were a big part of propelling me to do things. The Christian Brothers, I went to high school at Christian Brothers, and the brothers were always having us do what I guess you'd call today faith in action. I remember going down to Faith Mission and to Immaculate Conception Church in those days, it was, tutoring kids, helping them with their homework. I remember going across the street from Christian Brothers and getting the kids at the Noise Home and bringing them over to the gym, and we'd play volleyball or basketball, and also help tutor them. And I remember they had an old piano in there that I also played. And we just did all kinds of service projects. And one of the things I did for 4 years while I was in high school was I was one of the organists at the State Hospital chapel, the Catholic chapel there. And so service projects upon service projects in high school, the brothers really helped us employ faith in action. So the cathedral, the Christian Brothers, and then the third major influence was scouting. I've been an old Boy Scout here for, I don't know, close to 60 years. And, we always, on our honor, say we will help other people at all times and believe we have a duty to God and country. And those are things that I believed when I was 8 years old, and I believe today when I'm 70 years old. And I try and put them all into practice. One of the things that I keep thinking of, especially when I get irritated, when I take a little brickbat from the critics, is Brother Patrick, who was my high school principal for 3 of the 4 years I was at Christian Brothers. He and I had dinner over in St. Louis after I graduated from college. And I said, "Brother, I'm going to be a teacher, and do you have any advice for me?" And he said, "Bill, yes, I do. Don't take yourself too seriously and roll with the punches." Well, that's almost, I need to carve that in my office wall in City Hall. That's something I've thought of a lot when I've been mayor.
That's an awesome advice. Go ahead, Candy.
I was just thinking about, you have a very diverse council, and I just can't imagine how
you think so, huh?
Yeah, it's so apparent. And I know that I'm sure you agree wholeheartedly with some of them, and others you just would have to have some disagreements with. And I just wonder how you navigate that when it's such a fine line. I would think you had to be walking all the time. And I'd love to hear how you've managed that.
Well, I just try to treat others the way I'd like to be treated. It's true we have a diverse council. I mean, I think the council is probably a good reflection of the city of St. Joseph. We have a lot of different viewpoints here. And I suppose on the council, I've said a few times, it seems like there are 4 of us kind of in one arena and 4 of us, maybe arena is the wrong word, 4 of us who sort of have similar opinions. And then there are 4 others who have similar opinions. And then there's a swing vote in the middle. So we never know sometimes. But, you can disagree without being disagreeable. And that's what I try to do.
And that's a great quality for the leader, especially now during this time when there are so many disagreements and people get angry and even violent. Because of that, I want to ask you about one more achievement, and it's maybe not an achievement, but one of your sides as a leader, as a man, and that is being a chieftain of Native American group, I believe, right? Tribe. So I thought it's so symbolic that you are here, our guest today, on the Earth Day. And last Sunday, it was a Native American Sunday. In our church, we celebrated. So, and of course, we know that Native Americans or American Indians, they have such respect for the nature. And of course, today the city gave an opportunity at Remington Center. I know Candy donated her printer, right? So you can say more about that. But what's a unique opportunity all over the city? People are planting trees, people donate something that is already broken, large equipment. Could you say a little about that? How important it is for you to protect and preserve our environment?
Well, of course, I think of two things. Scouting. It comes from scouting. We are all conservation minded in scouting, and that's, I suppose, where I learned a great deal about nature and camping out and learning how to take care of yourself. I was talking to a gentleman the other day that is an Eagle Scout, as I am, and said that when he was in the Army, it was kind of unusual that when they were out in basic training and out in the wilderness, that some of the guys had, most is all guys in those days, I guess. Some of the guys had never been camping, and they said, "My gosh, there could be snakes out here," or whatever, And of course, all of us Boy Scouts, we camp all the time and hike and do all that. I don't get to do much anymore, but so that is when you're out in nature. As one of the chiefs in Mickasay, who was the leader when I was a boy, Finley Fisk. In fact, I think he was a member of, in those days, Francis Street Methodist Church. But anyway, Finley used to use the phrase, "We are here together in God's great out of doors." God's great out of doors. And I remember walking, after Mickasay ceremonies, and Mickasay is not a Native American organization. It's loosely based on Native American traditions, but it's an honor society for Scouts. And, I was tapped in 1964 and have been active in the organization ever since. And the leaders, they're called chieftains, and I became a chieftain a few years ago, and I'm happy to provide some leadership still. But anyway, I can remember walking from the ceremonies, walking out of the woods and down the river bluff and back to the lodge after ceremonies at like midnight or whatever, and looking up at the sky. And I always think of Finley's words, God's great out of doors. But out in the country where the ambient light is not there, the stars are just twinkling. You can see the constellations, and it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful.
It's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, and that also helps us understand the importance for you, importance of art and music and nature and everything you do, and then it comes and shapes you as who you are now, the mayor of our wonderful, beautiful city. So, Candy.
Just kind of along that line, I love the recycling center. I use it all the time. It's convenient. It's easy to use. They unload your car for you. It's really wonderful. But I was wondering if the city has thought about curbside recycling, or what your thoughts are on that. Is it just too expensive to do, or just I'll listen to what you have to say about that.
Well, one of the guys who has a local trash service was doing it for a while, and he called me, it was about a year ago, and he said, "Bill, I just can't make any money at this." And I don't think he wanted to make a whole lot of money, but he was losing a lot of money. So I don't know, at some point in the future, we have a sustainable environmental advisory committee that we just had a proclamation on Earth Day last week involving them. And some local businesses got some green awards that, that's going to be publicized here, I think, next week. And so they're just starting, and it's our idea is to develop a 5-year plan and action plan, and to actually extend it beyond that into the next 15 years. So we have a ways to go in recycling, and I don't think at this point we're at a curbside recycling point. I'd like to be at some point in the future. And, I'd like to even start, we have Schneider Electric doing a lot of work in our various city buildings, making them more energy efficient. And some months back, we were all wearing masks when this presentation happened. We received a check for $78,000 of energy savings and rebates for the energy work we'd done. And now they're tackling, the big one. They're down at the water protection facility. And Schneider is going to update that facility, make it more effective and more energy efficient. And there was a nice article I noticed in the paper this morning about this enormous dryer that we've had that has taken a while to get this thing up and going. But we're going to be able to recycle some of the sludge that is left over there at the water protection facility, that we're going to be able to recycle that and make it into fertilizer. So so city council meetings are not the only place that you encounter fertilizer now in city government. That was a joke, in case you're.
I got it.
Yeah, and that's a very good insight on what you're doing as a leader. So you work on many sides of our city activity and progress, and that takes me back to your goal, to your purpose as a mayor, to achieve civic progress through civic engagement, better civic engagement. Could you say more about your vision, and maybe using this channel, using this podcast, you could invite people, encourage people to really practice that civic engagement?
Well, yeah, and sometimes I wish there were less civic engagement when when I'm, feeling the brunt of it a little bit. But seriously, I'm very glad that people are involved, and I think we have more people involved, and we have a lot of boards and commissions. They're all on the city website, and if you have trouble getting on the website, just call my office, and we'll guide you through it. There are a lot of people involved in these various boards and commissions that report to the council for the most part. And then coming up this fall, there's an opportunity for anyone to pick up the papers at the clerk's office and get some petitions filled out and file for council. I'd encourage it's been it's hard work, but it's very rewarding work, and I'd encourage everyone who's interested in government and making their community a better place. The civic engagement par excellence in city government is running for council. And so I'd encourage you to run for council, run for mayor. If anyone's interested in doing that, I'd be happy to talk to them and let them know what they're in for and give them some pointers on the mechanics of it all. But, I learned a long time ago, I think it was a guy, I think his name was Patrick Burke, who said this, the key to development is involvement. So if we want to make our city better, if we want to develop our city, we need your involvement to do that. And involvement means get in there. As Pope Francis has said, it's the field hospital. Get in there and get your hands dirty. And, anybody can, as another friend of mine says, any jackass can kick down a barn. But we don't want to kick down things. We want people to come together and do the hard work of forming consensus and taking our city forward. And you can do that on boards and commissions. You can do it in neighborhood associations. You can do it in a host of volunteer boards that even are not city affiliated. I spent a lot of time on a lot of boards and really enjoyed it. And you can also run for office. And I'd encourage you to do all those things.
That's good. I think we're all ready now to run for our offices. Okay, Scott, go ahead.
I'm curious, what would you say are the 2 or 3 greatest challenges facing St. Joseph today?
Well, of course, there's, there's so many things I could say. I think one of the things that's challenging is we have about a 17 or 18% poverty rate, and we need to help people get better jobs. Kind of help people lift up and have a good economy so that helps them. I think that the poverty rate reflects in so many ways. I mean, we have a lot of Medicaid births at the hospital. We have a lot of free and reduced lunches at the schools. We have a lot of people that we need to reach out. These are our brothers and sisters. These are our fellow citizens. We need to reach out and help. So overcoming poverty. And that's the basis. As the chief and I have talked more than once, the underlying cause of a lot of crime is poverty. And I do want to commend the chief and the police department because the Part 1 index crimes, we are on a downward trajectory. So, we were the auto theft capital of the world a few years ago, according to some, and auto thefts are way down. I mean, we still have some. I mean, we won't probably ever get to a point where we don't have any. But even when I was a kid, I remember there were auto thefts of, Model T Fords. I'm kidding again. That's a joke. But no, we've had some thefts, but not as many as we had before. So those are just a few thoughts. I think poverty is the number one cause, and so we work hard to recruit new jobs. And we have a great new. I was honored to be a part of the group that helped recruit Cereal Ingredients. They're coming to town in the Easttown Business Park. They're going to build a huge building out there. It's a $24 million project. They're going to have, in the first few years, 40 some jobs, and in the next 5 years, 60. And I think the average salary is going to be in the neighborhood of 45,000. So, this is not hamburger flipping jobs, which there's nothing wrong with that. I've done plenty of hamburger flipping, but these are the sorts of jobs that we're going after, and we are constantly. I want to commend the chamber for their work in this regard. They're constantly out recruiting, and there's one big project that I'm thinking of right now that I think, boy, we're so close to getting the ink dry on that contract and getting this announced. So, that's one of the fun things to do as mayor, is see if you can recruit new business to the city. So that's a challenge. Poverty, recruiting new business. I think one of the things that shows up in the community survey, and I just skimmed the community survey, the new one is going to be announced next week. I just got an advanced copy and skimmed it. I mean, our community appearance, and this is something that everybody can be engaged in. Every civic engagement person in the city can be civically engaged. Just don't throw litter out your car windows. I just noticed the other day, I actually went out and picked some stuff up. There was, I knew what somebody had for lunch because I saw the bag and I saw the wrapper and I saw the soda cup, and I could pretty well tell you how many calories they ingested there at noon, based on the remnants. But, just easy stuff. Anybody, I do this when I walk into City Hall and I see some stuff on the ground and there's a trash can right there in front, pick it up. Community appearance, that's something that those of us who've lived here all our lives, may just be used to it. But I know when some people move to town, they go, gosh, there's some places here in St. Joe, it's a dirty old river town. I go, oh, is it? I mean, I've just seen it all my life. But I do try and pick things up, and everybody can do that. That's something everybody can do. You see some litter on the ground, pick it up, and primarily just don't throw it out the window. Don't throw it down. I mean, it's stuff we can all do to make our neighborhoods better and make our city better. And, I think the other thing I've noticed, there seem to be, maybe this is a bell curve. I don't know. I really haven't done the math on this, but there seem to be some extremes. And this is in the country. This is not just in our city, but some extremes on the left and some extremes on the right. And I'm disheartened sometimes when I hear the extreme viewpoints, and generally, they're rather stentorian, and we don't get anywhere yelling at each other. And so those who have the extreme views, if they could move a little closer to the middle and kind of work with the other side of the aisle, I think that's a challenge we have here. But I think everybody has that challenge. And those are just a few things that come off the top of my mind here.
We have a go ahead, just a second. Candy has a question, and then we also have a question from Jennifer Tanguer on the bottom of the screen. So Candy, go ahead.
Okay, take Jennifer's question first because mine's going to lead us kind of away.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So how can churches such as Francis Street First reach out to the community to aid in the poverty matter?
Well, there are lots of ways to reach out to the community. I mean, just the first thing is like pretend you're running for office and just walk down the neighborhood and knock on the door and introduce yourself and say, I'd like to invite you to come to church on Sunday. We have donuts So, and coffee. I mean, whatever. And I think as a community, I think there are a lot of people that are alone, and who wouldn't get depressed just sitting alone in your room. Sounds like a musical there, doesn't it? Uh, and and so and so just going out and being like a politician. When you run for office, you go out and canvass, you knock on all the doors. I think the very people respond to people, and as we used to say in the insurance business, people buy from people that they know. So go out and meet people and meet them where they are. They may not come to church, dressed exactly as we think they ought to be dressed, but if they're at least there, that's the important thing. So I think going out evangelizing, just let St. Paul be your model. Just get out there and start walking and write a few letters. I mean, that's one way you can start. And, the Methodists, my gosh, what a history of social justice. I mean, my gosh, all the things that, have been done. I almost could recite John Wesley's things, but you're supposed to do all that you can by whatever means you can and all the ways that you can. I mean, not bad for a Catholic, right?
I was going to say.
But I mean, I think that could be your mantra. I mean, that's the founder, and I just follow those points. I think that would be a great way to start. And you already have all kinds of social service things, and Wesley services, community InterServe is Wesley Catholic Services originally. Well, it was Wesley originally, and then Wesley Catholic, and then now it's Interfaith Community Services, InterServe. Be active, and I know you are. Be active in various organizations. I'm very proud of being on the board of Community Action Partnership, and they've done a lot of good for a lot of people in so many ways. And also, of course, when I was public administrator, I got on the board of Family Guidance, and I have seen firsthand the good that they have done. And things like scouting. I'd have to mention some of my scout leaders sure played a great influence in my life, and I think just youth programs in general. Be a good coach, be a good scout leader. Go into the teaching profession. I was a teacher in K through 12 for 6 years, and then part-time adjunctly at Missouri Western for 17 years. So 23 years of teaching. I love teaching, enjoyed it so much, and I learned at least as much as the kids did, maybe more. So, I mean, all these sorts of things, get out and see people, let people know that you love them, and that, if I can say this without being overly religious, see Christ in others. I think that's the foundation there. And I think John Wesley would agree with me on that one.
He will absolutely agree. Yeah. And also, I would love to invite you to our church and preach. Or at least to give us, because what you said really goes in parallel to my sermon tomorrow. So I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate your how well you read. Because with all your busy lifestyle and everything you do and all these emergencies in the city and having a family and playing the organ, I don't know how do you even find time to read, but you quoted so many wonderful writers today and leaders, so I appreciate this a lot. But along with that, I want to, since we were on the topic of your vision for the city, I want to go back for a little while to that topic. Because, 4 years ago when my husband and I came to St. Joseph, we were told that there are 32 languages in this city. Not a big city, 78,000 people, and that's how the Missouri Conference actually thought that it would be beneficial for me, since I am bilingual and I'm from a different culture, to come to this place. And I remember how we entered Five Guys, just right on the corner of Frederick and North Belt, and heard a German speech. And they were like about 5-6 tall guys speaking only German. And so we tried to listen, and my husband knows some German. So we introduced ourselves, and they happened to be from the Schutz company. Is it Schutz or Schatz? Okay,
Well, shoot.
this is container and packing. So could you say a little, because seems like that is also part of the vision to bring different companies that provide job placement.
Well, sure. My gosh, when I think of, well, Schutz, of course, Archer in German. Yeah, that's a great company, and expanded even. I mean, since I've been on the council, they've expanded, and that's wonderful. And I think though, we hear a lot of talk about immigrants these days. My grandmother's parents, one of them came from Germany, and one came from Switzerland. And on the other side, of course, they're all from Ireland. So the Germans in my grandmother's home spoke German, and when they went to mass, the mass was in Latin, of course, in those days, but the sermon was in German. And so when my Irish grandfather, after whom I'm named, William Igo was his last name, when he was courting my grandmother, and he'd go to mass there at Immaculate Conception, and it was pretty hard on an Irishman's ears to have someone in German. So I don't know. He made some rather humorous remark that I can't really say here on if we're out
Public.
privately. I'll tell you what my grandmother told me my grandfather said about. But it was interesting. We think about all these different cultures. My grandmother's family was very much against her marrying an Irishman. They didn't much like the Irish at all. And so she went ahead and married him. It's a good thing. I wouldn't be here, I guess, if she hadn't. But the Germans back here in those days in Swiss, they didn't much like the Irish. And then even some of the Irish didn't get along. Some of my Irish relatives, we used to say those at the cathedral, were the lace curtain Irish. And then we had some of the railroad Irish down at St. Pat's, and they didn't much like each other. So, I mean, it's just interesting, even the same cultures. So it's good that, diversity. One of the quotes that I used to say to my daughters is this one: unity does not mean uniformity. Unity does not mean uniformity. So, we can all be unified particularly as Americans. And I think we have a great country. I mean, I love this country, and thank God for America, as H. Robardo used to say. When's the last time you knelt down and said a prayer and thank God for America? Well, I tried to, but we don't have to all be the same, and we shouldn't all be the same. I think that's the strength of this country, that we have so many immigrants and so many people from so many different cultures, and unity does not mean uniformity.
Wonderful. I think this is a great statement. Candy had a question.
Oh, sure.
Okay. Well, and I'm kind of taking this back maybe a little bit, but I really do think St. Joseph has wonderful programs to help people who are experiencing poverty. There are so many things that we do to help people, and I'm proud to be even a teeny part of that. But what I wondered, what is the way that we kind of keep track of all of that so we're not duplicating services? And what is that overall plan? Or I don't exactly understand how that works. There are things that sometimes I would like for the church to even be involved in, but I don't want to just duplicate something that someone else is already doing. How do you be a part of that, or how's that designed?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't worry about duplicating, because there's such a need. There's such a big need. But all the social service agencies, like InterServe, have a computer program that they can all check and see who's coming in and who's receiving what assistance, and so that there won't be anybody that's taking advantage of the system. But when I hear that people take advantage of the system, people who are in poverty that take advantage of the system, my response is always, well, you know what? There are people who are millionaires who don't even pay taxes. Tell me what? They're kind of taking advantage of the system.
Yeah.
So I don't want anybody to take two wrongs don't make a right. I don't want anybody to take advantage of the system. And every single wedding and funeral that I play for as an organist, even when they pay me in cash. I put it all in an Excel spreadsheet and give it to my CPA every year, and I count that income. I don't, I think it's a privilege to be able to pay taxes to keep this great country operating.
Right. I wasn't so much worried about people getting too much help. That's not my point at all.
Okay.
It's, really, because I don't think that can happen. Really, I don't. But what I was more concerned about was I wouldn't want to start a program that exists, just next door when they're already doing it well. So why should I want it to be useful, You can duplicate something that someone else is already doing, but I would want to know that what we were doing was useful and helpful in the overall picture, I guess.
Well, there is a group. I've learned about a lot of groups, and there's a group called Continuum of Care. I don't know if you've heard of it, but Rachel from CAP. Now, what's Rachel's last name? This is what happens when you get to 70. You forget last names sometimes. But anyway, Rachel from CAP is the president of that, I believe, and they meet at the United Way each month. And it's all these representatives from a number of different organizations for that very point, very purpose, to avoid duplication of effort. So that's, call United Way and ask them when the Continuum of Care meets. And this is so funny. I know Rachel. I know Rachel very well. And somehow or other, Rachel Maddow keeps coming into my head, and it's not Rachel Maddow.
No, not her.
No,
it's blocking.
That's not the one.
It's blocking Rachel's last name here. I'm sorry about that. Sorry, Rachel, if you're listening. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Very good. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
I have a question. Recently, we had Natalie Redmond, a senior vice president of Chamber of Commerce, and she shared about the vision for the city. And I also asked her a question about your vision for Frederick downtown, to have the entertainment center, kind of an entertainment district. Could you say a little about that? Because she talked about 2024 vision. Is it also a part of that, or this is a different vision?
Well, no, the city, we adopted a long-range plan, the council, and we based it on the 2040 plan. Okay. And invest in people, create a better place, grow prosperity. Those are the three major heads. And then we had some things specific to the city underneath each of those. But the Frederick Avenue, things, when I look at River Bluff Brewing, in the building that was falling apart there previously, and they fixed it up and whenever I drive down, sometimes I stop actually, but when I drive down Frederick and I look in there and I see all these people, I'm thinking, this is great. This is just what we need. And we have some empty buildings on Frederick that we need to fill up. I'm noticing that another one somebody's working on, and a couple of others actually. And so, I mean, the Frederick Avenue corridor, it's in the works, and there are people working on developments there. The downtown, which Frederick leads right into, and Frederick used to be a cow path, by the way, not in my youth, but that's the urban legend anyway. There was a stream there, and it was a cow path, and that's why we have Frederick Avenue with that kind of unusual angle going down there. But anyway, downtown, when I started in the insurance business in 1978, it was the very beginning of the downtown mall. And it was at first, it was somewhat okay. We walk around downtown at lunchtime and, go to the dime store and have a nice, inexpensive lunch. I was new in the insurance business. I had to watch my pennies and go to the dime store and have lunch, or go to the Federal Bakery. And, I can start rattling off all these places, go down to Everett's and buy some shoes, and on and on and on. Well, thanks to urban renewal, or as we sometimes called it, urban removal, and the downtown mall and all of that. And eventually downtown merchants kind of left. And, about 10 years later, by the late 80s, downtown was rather grim. There just wasn't a whole lot going on. And so I suppose because I remember that when I look at all this, and I was downtown president in 1985, by the way. So, I was, nobody left on my watch, right? But anyway, we did lose some businesses downtown. And in the recent years, in recent past, look at all the development that's gone on downtown. It's just when I think back to that era about 10 years after I joined the insurance agency and how stark it was, and then I look today at how beautiful it is and how many businesses there are and all these people downtown, and I just and there's more coming. There's more development coming. So I mean, I'm so thrilled at what's happened downtown. It's better now. When I looked at the Christmas decorations last year and this year, reminded me of downtown when I was a kid. I mean, it was just beautiful. So I'm looking forward to the downtown's continued development and to some of that development heading up Frederick Avenue even more now that it's started, even more so.
Thank you for your answer, Scott.
I'd be curious, what would you say is your greatest success story, maybe the most heartwarming story that you could share in your time either as a public administrator or as the mayor?
Oh gosh, well, starting with mayor, I mean, I suppose from a civic, creating a better place, which is one of our three main goals. The passage of the bonds for bridges, which was, the election was supposed to be in April and it was moved to June, and we all thought, oh my gosh, we're in the middle of a pandemic and we're asking the voters for $20 million so we can get GO bond. We didn't have any general obligation bonds. We're going to go out and get the bonds, and in other words, take out a loan to fix all these bridges, some of which are 100 years old. And we had a lot of naysayers who said this isn't going to pass, for various reasons, and it passed. I just went up to the cathedral and lit a candle, said a prayer. I mean, I was so grateful that this happened, and so that probably from a civic perspective is one of the great things that's happened. I'm very grateful that this council early on, like in the first year, started a Human Rights Commission, and I think. At times, I would not always agree with everything. I mean, I'm certainly an advocate of human rights, but at times I maybe would ask for a little compromise or something on certain elements. But I'm so glad we have that committee and that they're working and trying to make, get rid of any sort of prejudice or anything of that nature in our city. We don't need that in St. Joe or anywhere. So, I'm so grateful that happened. And, we are in the middle of a great discussion about Krug Park right now, and or Krug, as they say. I said Krug for so many years. I can't get out of the habit, but Krug, I guess, is, well, in German would be correct.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think, what is Krug anyway? Krug means like jug or something in German, if I remember. I don't have Cassell's handy. I could look it up, but but anyway, that could really be something. I think that could be a great thing. And then I-229, we're discussing that thing to death. I hope we reach a conclusion. MoDOT's coming back in June with some ideas on the MPO's suggestion, kind of a Ward Parkway approach. See if we can find the money for that. Statewide. So anyway, that's something. I'm so happy that the Senate just passed, and I think it had an emergency clause, so it could be signed into law real quickly. Mo Works can be applied to the part-time jobs at the 139th. So you don't have to just in order to get all this done, we don't have to have just full-time jobs. When it comes to the military, we can also count the part-time jobs and get some state help on that. So that's the 139th, a major factor in our economy. And when we had the problems with the flood, who was out there on the right bank of the river, over on I guess you'd think of as the Kansas side, but the Guard, putting those sandbags up there so we didn't flood the base and Elwood and everything. And as Mayor Faulkner used to say, when we have difficulties in St. Joe, we don't dial 911, we dial 139, the 139th. So we are so lucky to have that air base there, and I'm so grateful. So those are some things that, as being mayor, and as I said earlier, several people came up. I went to one gal who'd completed her outpatient drug and alcohol program, and they had a little graduation ceremony, and I went down to it. And she didn't even know I was there. I was sitting in the back. I don't often get to sit in the back, so I took advantage of it. And she said something that really touched me. She said, my guardian saved my life, and that meant a lot. And I've had several people that were restored. They were under guardianship, but we worked with them, and their mental health professionals worked with them, and their doctor, and we got a deposition from the doctor saying we think they can go on their own now. They don't have to be under guardianship anymore. And there are a lot of factors that play into that. But so there's several people that have been restored, and several of them even call me and come up at the mayor's office even sometimes and see me. It's seeing the people be successful, and then especially somebody thanking you for saving their life. Well, that's maybe that's not quite as, getting the bridges passed. That's important, but it's also important to save a life. So, I mean, I've had a lot of wonderful experiences, and I'm very grateful for all of them.
Thank you. I have a question. It actually came from one of our viewers. So the question was that traditionally, the city of Joseph, when we have to make a budget cut, it happens on the account of children's programs, like a swimming pool was closed for a while. And I'm sure as a new mayor, you have a different approach. So how do you see that in case if you have to make a budget cut, city budget cut, how would you approach it without hurting children's services and public places?
Well, first of all, we have moved some money around, and we're going to take care of Horseman School, the Bartlett Center. That's in Midtown. It's been neglected for too long, and so we are making some improvements in the John Lucas Park. And I remember, Candy, you probably remember John Lucas. He was a council member. Great council member. And I loved talking to him. Big guy. I didn't give him any guff because he's about 5 times bigger than I am. But anyway, so John Lucas Park, we're making some changes to improve that. And also the gym there that is not air conditioned. Imagine having basketball in the summer in the old Horseman gym there at the Bartlett Center without air conditioning. Well, we're going to air condition it. And Schneider Electric is on this project, and they're going to guarantee the energy savings. And if the guarantee isn't met, then they're going to pay it out of their pocket. So we've got a great thing going there. So there's some children's services, especially in an area of town that needs some children's services that are being moved up. The pools. I'm an old life-saving merit badge, swimming merit badge. I love swimming. I just lived up the hill from the noise, what we used to call the noise pool. I remember riding down there on my bike with my sister, and we'd go swimming down there and go over afterwards and get a Henry's hamburger around the corner. Well, the problem at the noise pool is, this really probably goes back to deferred maintenance. I mean, when we don't have a lot of money and we put off making repairs, as one of the guys in scouting used to say all the time, deferred maintenance is maintenance made more expensive. I can hear Bob is who was saying it. Well, that's true in the city, deferred maintenance. So anyway, we had this, they really put it together with baling wire and chewing gum. I mean, the east wall of the noise pool, behind that east wall is a filter house, and that wall has fallen in. And that's why we couldn't, we had the COVID problem last year, which was part of the reason. But the other reason was a structural reason. This wall's fallen apart. And we had various estimates on fixing this. And the fix would only be temporary. And so we'd spend buku bucks and have a temporary fix. And, what I want to do is spend, $6 million. And let's put a new pool in at Noise, a lap pool. Now, Noise is going to be open with the other little features that are there, but the lap pool isn't because of this danger of this wall. If this filter house wall were to fall in toward the east, it would suck the water right into that opening, because of the water pressure. And if you happen to be swimming, what used to be under the diving board area, you'd be sucked into the filter house and killed. So, I mean, that's how serious this is. But, I mean, this is a problem that never, I don't think, should have happened. And with all due respect to the guys, I mean, they kept it together and they put a temporary fix in there, and, you know, God bless them. They're doing the best they can with limited resources. But one of the things I'd like to ask the voters for before we leave office, and maybe it would be in August, is some money for parks. I'd like to do something with Krug Park. We're still trying to figure out just what's feasible and what's economically possible there. And I'd like to do something with the pools. You know, not only the noise pool, but also the pool over at Krug, where the school used to be there. Boy, that's a long time ago, Krug School. But the pool there, I mean, both these pools need some work, and we really should replace them both. And we probably would spend at least $10 million to replace them both total. So, but we should, you know. Now, you know, we have trouble getting lifeguards. I can't believe this. I even, you know, stood there and subbed as a lifeguard out at Scout Camp, and at our murky pool, we had a old 1930s era pool that the water was so brown you couldn't even see the bottom. But anyway, I remember lifeguarding out there as a substitute. But we have trouble getting lifeguards. I don't know what the deal is. And we did just spend over $2 million down at Hyde Park. It's going to open this summer for this. They call it a water feature. I don't think you need lifeguards for a water feature, but it's got all these things where you can run through the sprinklers and do all this stuff. And we're looking forward to a grand opening soon. So we have spent a couple $1 million down there at Hyde on that. So the pools, I think, definitely are something I always enjoy doing in the summer. Maybe kids don't like it so much today, but I still think we need to do something with aquatics. And as long as I'm talking about, you know, what I'd like to ask people to pay for, aquatics being one, the Civic Arena, we have a chance to host the Elite Eight, which is a big deal in basketball, into 2023 and 2024. But again, Civic Arena opened about 1979 thereabouts. Replaced the old City Auditorium, which I remember playing basketball there. You dribble the ball down the court, and suddenly the ball stops dribbling because there's a dead spot in the floor of the old City Auditorium. And of course, the wrestling matches. Whoever lived in St. Joe remembers the wrestling matches at the City Auditorium. Well, we tore that down. We built the Civic Arena about 40 years ago, and now it's had some deferred maintenance. We need to do some work on it. And so I'd like to put aquatics, parks as the general title, aquatics, Civic Arena, Krug Park. I'd like to get all those in there and ask the voters, maybe in August, let's fix these things up. You know, these are great assets to our city, and we should fix them up. Now, we are receiving the American Rescue Plan. We are receiving $39 million from the Fed, and in two installments, half this year, half next year. So some of that money, 3 of the 4 categories there are COVID related, but the 4th category, I heard the Senate just kind of stuck that on there, is water, sewer, and broadband. It doesn't have to be related to COVID. So I am hoping that we can spend some of this federal money that's coming in on maybe some capital improvements in those areas, along with asking the voters to send a little in too. So, I mean, we'll see. I mean, this is just Bill talking, and we have to see what the council says and what staff recommends. But hopefully we can do something here with the voters.
Sounds good. That shows how big, ambitious, but also people-oriented are your projects and your vision. Thank you so much. And I have a question, and unless Scott and Candy have questions, I want a question to ask about your family life during COVID and during your mayorship. Because when we cope with sudden life changes, becoming a mayor of a large city with all the problems and poverty and all the things that you discussed today and shared with our audience, I'm sure that people are very, very interested in how do you keep yourself balanced, grounded, and also I know that you're a wonderful husband and you spend lots of time with your wife, but you know this job is very demanding. So what is your secret? How do you stay healthy and well and happy?
Well, I do enjoy music, and that is, as I've said all along, that's a great mental health break. And so, I mean, it's just like, changing gears and thinking about something. I go to choir practice and accompany the choir. And, I'm not director anymore in my old age, but I still accompany the choir. And also, my dog's right here bothering me. So, I mean, the dog is also helpful. And Judy and I still do things together. And, we go out to dinner occasionally now that COVID has kind of calmed down. And we both had our 2 shots. As I say, we both have had our distemper shots, so safe to go out somewhat. So we do a little bit of that, and just being involved in several different activities where I can kind of take off my mayor's hat and think about some other things. It's very refreshing to think about other things, change of pace, and as you mentioned, I enjoy reading. I have lots of books here in the bookshelf, and one of my goals when I leave office, I have already started on this, but I have never read. Well, here's one of them. I don't know if you can see this. Woo! This just happens to be right. I love reading the Old English, and thank goodness in this one they have the modern English on the other page. Kind of reminds me of the Missal when I was growing up. We had the Latin on one side and the English on the other. This one, we got the old German on, or the old English, which is like German kind of, and then the English. So I'm I love reading that sort of thing, and I never have read all the way through the Aeneid in Latin. I love Latin and took Latin in school, and so I finally found a copy of the Aeneid, which also has Latin on one side and English on the other. So I read through the Latin and see if I can figure out the translation. And then I look over at the English and see if I'm right. And so, stuff like that, I guess I'm just kind of weird, but I enjoy reading things like that. And I love reading histories. And, on my desk here, I have a picture of Winston Churchill and a bust of President Kennedy from the Kennedy Center in D.C. that, President Kennedy was one of my heroes. I look at him every day and when I'm here at my desk. And so, I mean, it's just, and then all the kids, I mean, I haven't gotten to visit them much in the last year, but, thanks to FaceTime, I mean, even grandkids even call me up. And so it's great to hear from them. And and every now and then I have a martini. So these are the things I use.
Well, thank you. You just sound such a wonderful and authentic human being. And it's a true joy to have you with us today. And Jennifer Tangoy had a question about, do you still play the organ? But I think you just answered that. You still play. And I really appreciate that today you had to play at your church at 4 p.m. at the Mass, but you found a substitute for not being late. Thank you so much for being so thoughtful, so attentive, and so honest with all your questions. Say please hello to your wonderful wife, Deborah. Not Deborah, but we just applaud for your integrity, for everything you do in the city, and also for telling us that your term is coming to the end. And so you're not going to be re-elected. You do not want to run for another term?
Well, when I ran for mayor, I said, I'm going to do this for 4 years. All right. And I'll do it. I'll be a full-time mayor, which I really tried hard to be. And, I think the last 3 years, and I'm thinking the next year, the 4 years that I'll have been in office, I think I've had at least 8 years worth of excitement in these 4 years. And, I really am looking forward to studying some more. And, I never did finish my doctoral dissertation. That was, I ran for public administrator instead. And then that was such an ordeal. I had to kind of put the dissertation on the shelf. And so I passed the comps and everything, took the coursework. I'm ABD. When my daughter Mary passed her orals, she said, "Hey, Dad, now I'm ABD, just like you." But I'm going to get my doctorate. Yeah. So anyway, maybe one of these days I'll figure out a way to finish the dissertation and finish the doctorate. And and so I would look forward to do something like that when I retire. And of course, scouting and music. As long as I can still play the organ and do all that, I want to do that. So, and as I've told you, I want to do some reading in Old English and in Latin. So, I want to do all these things, and I just don't have time to do a whole lot of it. Some of it I do. You mentioned, I did get Allison to sub for me at 4:00 Mass today, but I was at Our Lady of Guadalupe today for the 11 o'clock funeral and the 1 o'clock wedding. So I did do 2 services today, and then I have 9:30 Mass in the morning and 7 o'clock Mass in the evening tomorrow at St. Francis. So got both of those. Oh, and in the afternoon, I'm going out to Scout Camp for the Council of Chieftains spring meeting for the tribe. So there you go.
This is quite a busy schedule, Scott.
Yeah, but Bill, I just wanted to say any man who reads Latin for pleasure and has a bust of Churchill on his desk is all right with me.
Well, thank you.
And, yes, Latin and Old English, this is so impressive. Bill, I really want to invite you back to our podcast.
Sure.
And maybe next time as a doctor, we wish you to really complete your dissertation. But even if you don't, I know that Judith, your wife, is anticipating to gather around the dinner table with you and spend this evening at home. So we wish you the best. You're the most interesting and intriguing person, and so much more than just the mayor. It's kind of funny you say just the mayor, the mayor, but also so much more. And so you're just a very big global person, and with so much depth that we want to investigate maybe in the future. So I hope you will accept our invitation again in a different role, not as a mayor, but as a human being who knows so much and has such a deep interest to humanity and history and languages and of course music and religion. So thank you so much for sharing with us. We have lots of good words about this program today. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Well, thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.